Right off the bat, I just want to give a spoiler warning for this entire video. I'm just gonna go ahead and assume you've seen the entirety of the Owl House and just jump right into the stuff in this last season. Mostly cause I want to start by talking about Flapjack. It was just incredibly sad what happened to him, and you start to wonder if Hunter is ever gonna be the same. How do you just lose the most important person in your life and keep going? I honestly wasn't sure if I could make this video without Flapjack. Nothing's the same, and nothing ever will be without that little red bird. The best pal anyone could ever ask for. But I am inches away from the finish line with this show, so I think I could still cross it by myself and put a bow on everything we've said about this show over the years. I'm sure Flapjack would be proud of me for finishing our little review series up. It's thanks to them I even started watching this show in the first place, after all. So with that said, let's cover this episode by episode and start with thanks to them. Now, as we go along, I just want you to keep in mind that while I'm going to critique aspects of these episodes, I don't blame the crew for any of their issues, except for one, which I'll specify when we get to it. For the most part though, this crew had the Herculean task of concluding this show within a much smaller time frame than what they were expecting. Any pacing issues or lack of resolution for certain characters that crop up throughout the season should absolutely have the blame be thrown at Disney, rather than Dana and her team. Fortunately though, this episode is actually kind of airtight. It's really good and well paced. You can tell this little montage at the beginning consists entirely of scrapped episode ideas. Like, they were probably gonna have a full episode about Luz telling her mom she's bi, and Hunter getting Willow's help in dealing with his trauma, and Amity touching normal, non-acid rain for the first time, and I don't know, fashion, I guess.
Digital style!
I wish we got these episodes, but this is clearly the best they could do, so I'm glad we got glimpses of them here. I'm also glad we decided to devote dialogue to a Duolingo reference. Like, those memes are so funny and absolutely deserve to be canonized within the show. I also like Amity's Waluigi outfit. Just thought it was worth mentioning. I was really invested in Luz and Camila's struggles, as well as how they were there for each other. I like watching the Magic Gang explore the real world, and I don't know if I mentioned it in a previous video, but I think Hunter has become my favorite non-Hooty character. This episode in particular is so compelling for him as we watch him try and form his own identity after everything that's happened to him and everything he found out about himself. He's a precious boy, and I want good things for him, okay? When Luz tells him, "You're family now," and he starts crying behind the mask, like, come on! The episode also does a great job of building up the dread behind Belos' return. It's eerie, well-paced, and it leads to some creepy shit in the excellent fight scene towards the end. Not sure what else to say, it's just a great episode. Tense, emotional, funny, and a perfect first act for this final season. For the Future wasn't as good. Like, I don't know, it wasn't bad or anything, it was pretty decent, but you just kind of get the feeling that you'd rather be spending time with any other characters here in the second to last episode. Let's talk about the good stuff first. Right off the bat, it does what I wanted out of the season 2 finale and establishes the Collector and his rule over the Boiling Isles to be legitimately intimidating. Making puppets out of everyone isn't the most creative thing in the world, but you know, it works. They also establish that King can't really talk him out of what he's doing, since he's a child with dumb, stupid brain. All this to say, with the benefit of this knowledge, as well as the fact that Belos does indeed remain the main antagonist, I think a lot of my problems with the season 2 finale are mostly resolved now that I know the full arc of the series. I still think it's not quite as dramatically potent as True Colors, which uses similar plot beats to slightly higher dramatic effect. But you know what? It was pretty good. And shout out to For the Future for finally selling me on the Collector. Neat stuff. I also think it was nice to give Willow a little arc here at the end of the series. Better late than never, am I right? I've been pretty dismissive of this character over the years, but that's mostly because she has very little going for her. Not because I dislike her or find her annoying. This plotline with Willow succumbing to how stressed she really is and needing to let it all out to Hunter, that's great. This is the kind of shit I've been waiting for with this character for the entire show. I liked all the stuff Luz was going through in her Palisman reveal. I liked Hunter dealing with all of his trauma. That one joke where Belos sees Caleb and all the dead Golden Guards staring at him and he just says, "Ah, shut up." That was really funny. It was a pretty solid episode for the most part. But man, there are some things I just don't get about this one. Like, okay, the stuff with Ida and Lilith breaking free of the Collector's rule off screen, and figuring out that the Collector is weak to Titans pretty easily. That was awkward, but I assume that's cause of the shortening. Maybe they could have had a whole episode where King redeems the Collector just enough to get Lilith free, as well as giving us that Hooty backstory episode that the creators confirmed was planned for season 3, before having to get scrapped. But whatever, I'm fine with how abrupt this is, given the circumstances. But then there's the aspect of this episode that I really just have to question the creative team on. Why are the villains of this episode Batra and Kikimora? No one's favorite antagonists. I can understand wanting to go back to Hexside, but I could not give less of a shit about these two ruling the school when there are two far more significant threats to deal with. It all just feels like wheel spinning. Like we need Belos and the Collector to be interacting this episode, so we gotta give Luz and company something to do. Anything. The result is a conflict that I just can't believe made the cut into this season because of how insignificant it feels. And like, I enjoy Matholomew as much as the next guy, but surely there were more deserving characters to give the spotlight to in this episode. Like the Blight siblings are here at Hexside and they just don't matter. They're only here for a couple of gags. I also thought the humor in this episode was just weirdly off. Like a lot of the jokes just aren't well timed and some of them are...
Not the reaction I was expecting. What just happened?
Well, that just happened. I don't know, a lot of the jokes just felt bizarrely generic and below the standards for the writing on this show. All in all, it's a fine little wheel-spinning episode with some good moments here and there, but it's pretty easily the weakest link of the season, and I feel like it's the one misstep on behalf of the creators in season 3. And now for the series finale, Watching and Dreaming. What did I think of it? Well, for starters, pretty lame title. I know they wanted to spell out thanks for watching with the first word of each episode title, but Watching and Dreaming just doesn't have the same climactic satisfying ring as thanks to them or for the future. I swear to God, I'm never gonna remember this title whenever I talk about this episode. I'm just gonna call it the Owl House finale. Anyway, episode itself? Pretty great. I'd say given the circumstances, this is probably as good as it could have been. The biggest issue, as many have pointed out, is the lack of closure on a lot of characters. Pretty much all of them appear in the epilogue without any dialogue, and that's nice that we still do get endings for all of them. But I just wish we got more time to see all of them talk to each other and make this feel a lot more conclusive. Again though, the fact that this episode is this good of a finale is pretty miraculous, all things considered. This is where I was finally completely won over by the Collector, as I really believe their backstory and redemption. It was also a great idea to have Luz, Ida, and King take them to all the locations we're familiar with in the show, reflecting on their previous adventures in the process. It's a nice victory lap-esque thing for a finale to do, while also naturally fitting into the story. It was a little raw that Amity, Hunter, Gus, and Willow didn't get much to do, but I guess they were essential to the previous 2 episodes while Ida and King weren't. Meanwhile, can we just appreciate Belos for a second? Isn't it nice to just have a villain in a show who's evil at the beginning and then remains evil until the very end? And then they just kill him? No redemption or anything, just a horrible person through and through that we need to defeat. Man, have I missed this sort of villain. I like when the Collector tried to talk him out of being evil, only to utterly fail. It kinda felt like a subtle jab at a certain other show that uses that sort of thing as a crutch, even when it's completely inappropriate. But that's neither here nor there. I thought Titan Belos was an amazing, tense final opponent for the characters. The stakes felt sufficiently huge, Belos' weird moss shit made for such dark and compellingly spooky imagery, and having Luz actually die was an effective dramatic moment. I mean, yeah, it's another case of Amphibia doing it first, but I think in this regard, Owl House really outdid its sister series. It felt a lot more natural here. I was so happy to finally get closure on the King's dad plotline, something I wasn't expecting at all. I also wasn't expecting King's dad to be Egoraptor, but that's pretty cool, I guess. The implication that he made Hooty was neat, and I like how they didn't explain it. It's a nice mystery to keep people guessing, and that's pretty satisfying, I think. Titan Luz has a killer design, and I like how she still needed help from Ida and King during the final battle. She couldn't just one-shot Belos and be done with it. Giving Rain some chances to shine after all the shit they've been through was welcome. Luz ripping Belos out of the Titan was immensely satisfying. The animation was popping off, the music was great. Honestly, it's about as perfect of a final battle for this show as you can ask for. My favorite scene in the whole episode came afterwards with Belos' death. It's so creepy seeing him revert to his original human form before he became this demonic beast. With him trying one last deception on Luz, that utterly fails. And then it acid rains all over him and melts him down. Honestly, a really nice touch considering how we've heard about Acid Rain in the Boiling Isles for years, but never actually seen it used on anyone until this episode. I like how he's all goopy when he crawls toward Luz, because it reminds me of Toffee in Star vs. the Forces of Evil, which reminds me that this is yet another Disney Channel show that actually ended strongly, thus putting yet another nail in the Star coffin. The more nails, the better. You can never have enough nails. How did that show get 4 seasons to build up to a finale, and this is the bullshit they came up with? Oh well, good stuff here. It was a little goofy when Ida, King, and Rain stomped him out, but then again, it's not like this pathetic grifter deserved to die with dignity. Just a really great scene. Then comes the epilogue, which again, I would have liked to be better fleshed out with more characters talking to each other. Plus, why didn't the Collector just clean up all the damage with his powers? Is he stupid? Still, it was nice to have multiple Steve moments, as well as seeing where everyone ended up in the years following the events of the story. It all made sense, and I liked their new designs a lot. But they didn't even give Hooty a single line in this whole episode. Like, how do you manage not to do that? It's not like they didn't have access to his voice actor, like, hello? Oh well. Nice sweet ending. It didn't really hit me as hard emotionally as Gravity Falls and Amphibia did, but I think that's because those two had sadder elements to their conclusions. The twins are leaving town, and Anne is never gonna see her frog family again. Like, that's sad, and as a result, these are the two endings that are gonna stick with me more. But don't think that's a criticism of Owl House's conclusion. No. I don't think the show is thematically building towards an ending where Luz is separated from everyone like those other shows were. Having her connected to both worlds just feels like the right way to end things. Much better than that stupid, god-awful Star finale. Oh my god. But yeah, definitely the right conclusion for these peeps. And it's totally okay that it doesn't hit me as hard as Gravity Falls or Amphibia did. I'd say this is the default weakest ending of the 3, but it does have the best final battle, if that's any consolation. So yeah, that's the Owl House. I guess I'd have to give the final season an 8 out of 10. It leans more towards 7.5 honestly, but I'm gonna round up as a courtesy to the creative team since most of the season's issues are obviously Disney's fault. I'm beyond impressed that they were able to turn one of the shittiest hands ever dealt to any cartoon into a genuinely satisfying and fulfilling conclusion. Now that it's all over, I don't think this is quite as good as Gravity Falls. Maybe it could have been, but oh well, thanks Disney. Even so, it's one of the best modern cartoons out there, and it's been an absolute pleasure watching and reviewing it over the past few years with you know, it was nice to have that tribute to Flapjack in the finale. It's just hard to think about how not everyone makes it to the ending of a story. Flapjack didn't get to see how our favorite plucky band of witches brought peace to the Boiling Isles. He didn't miss out on any Hooty dialogue, thankfully. He saw everything that came out of this bird tube's mouth. But it is deeply, undeniably sad, you know? And I'm doing everything I can to not only work out all my feelings about missing Flapjack, but to also keep them separate from my silly online persona. Though, now just kind of felt like the time, you know? I mean, it's thanks to them I got into this truly amazing, inventive, funny, groundbreaking show. And accordingly, if you started watching the show based on our videos praising it, then it's thanks to them this show came into your life as well. I owe so much of who I am to him. He meant everything to me, and he always will. So on behalf of both of us, thanks for watching our review series of this show. And I'd like to ask you guys one favor. If you're watching this video on its release date, April 14th, please make sure to wish Patrick a happy birthday.